I often have people ask me, should I quit my 9 to 5 to do reselling full time? And I also get people who ask me, when do I know that this just isn't going to work, and when do I need to return back to a full time job? And I think we've all been there at some point, whether we've left our full time job for reselling or we have considered or have maybe left reselling for a full time job. And today I want to talk to you about the pros and cons that you should consider before making that decision. So let's get on with it on the other side. So without any further ado, let's go.
The following program contains disturbing materials that may not be suitable for some resellers. Viewer discretion is advised.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to the channel. This is John with Flippin' Ain't Easy. And this is something that I think I may have made a video on for those who were considering leaving their 9 to 5 to become a full-time reseller. And I didn't really, I may have given my thoughts on the topic and maybe gave you a few things to think about. But I really want to sort of go over a list of pros and cons for each thing. And now when I say each thing, either working for yourself, doing this on a full-time basis, reselling, or working for someone else at a 9 to 5. And I think before you make any decision about quitting reselling or quitting your 9 to 5, you really need to go over each of these key points and answer it for yourself. And everyone's going to have a different answer. My answer is going to be different than yours regarding either side of the coin, whether you want to leave your full-time job or leave the reselling game to go back to the full-time 9 to 5 gig. So the first thing I want to talk about is working for yourself and the pros of working for yourself. The first thing I want to talk about is flexibility. When you're working for yourself, you can set your hours. It allows you for a little better work-life balance. If you want to take time off or a day off, you don't have to beg somebody. You don't have to put in for time. You don't have to use sick days. I used to work in management where people would use up their sick time at the beginning of the year when all the sick time was replenished. And they use it all up, and they use their vacation time. And by the middle of the year, it's like they're in trouble. They can't make it to work. And it's like, I can't help you. You used all your time. Well, with reselling, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to beg somebody for time off or be disciplined if you have to take time away. And some of us have issues with like medical or family members where you just need that time. And that is certainly a pro when you're working for yourself. How about control? If you've ever worked a 9 to 5 job, it's a lot different than working for yourself. This is your gig. Working for yourself this is your game. You can choose, like we said, your schedule. You can choose what you're selling. You can choose how you sell it. You can do fixed price listings, auctions. You can sell on Whatnot. You can sell on District. You could sell on eBay, Amazon. You choose it. I think that's the cool thing. It gives you the flexibility to figure out what makes you happy. And for some, reselling is not just about making money, which I believe is the core principle for all of us, but it's also finding that thing that you enjoy dealing with and selling that type of item. And it makes working for yourself and reselling more enjoyable and more interesting, and keeps you involved rather than just selling random stuff, which is harder to really get into. Earning potential. Now, with reselling, there's really not a salary cap. You're limited to, there's a number of factors here. What you sell. I think also how you sell. Some people might have a bunch of clothing to sell. They could choose to sell it on eBay. They could be somewhat limited to the market and the number of items they list in their eBay store. But then that same seller can then maybe move over to Whatnot and sell clothing like every other day, and maybe at a smaller margin, but maybe do it in higher volume and really make some money that way if that's the path that you want to take. But you can exceed, when you're reselling, you can exceed the amount that most people would make in a standard paycheck, if it's done right. And we talk about that on this channel. I'm not going to go into that. It's up to you to unlock what that is, from what you're selling to how you sell it. And if you do it right, you have tremendous earning potential. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to make you rich, but you do have, there's really no limit as to what you can make if you do it right. The next one is passion pursuit. Now, I kind of touched on this a few seconds ago, but I'll talk about it again. You can really focus on selling the things that make you happy, so that you're handling or interacting with, maybe you have a hobby and you only get to do that hobby so often. Let's say, for instance, you like to play golf, and maybe, just maybe, you're able to come across a decent amount of golf equipment, whether through thrift stores, yard sales, maybe bulk lots that you buy, or maybe the networking that you've gone through because you do play golf, and you can buy that because you're happy with buying it, resell it, and it really, I think, keeps you motivated and in the game. I would say also personal growth is involved in the pros as well. And it allows you to develop skills that you may not have had before. A lot of people, they leave a 9 to 5 with virtually no customer service skills. And if you do this game right, you tend to kind of learn how to interact with the public where maybe you've not had that experience before. You learn to deal with finances a little bit better. Running a business, you have to know how much money to allocate for your cost of goods, for your supplies, for all the different things that are involved in making the sale and finalizing that sale. And you have to learn how to balance that away from your personal finances. So yes, it's rough for many when you start, but you learn those skills that may even translate into you being a better 9 to 5 employee down the road if you choose to go that route. Now, the cons for working for yourself, we'll go over that. And the first one is financial instability. So when you're working for yourself, you know, you're going to be all over the place, and especially when you're first starting. It's going to be rough to gain some traction because you just don't have the experience. Finding good sourcing opportunities, maybe you're dealing with rough times, like right now, there's a lot of uncertainty in the economy and the retail sector. When sales aren't happening across the board, whether it's Walmart, Target, eBay, or Amazon, you as a seller are also being affected. And some months are going to be great with reselling, and some months are not. And I think a lot of it hinges on not only the market and how many buyers we have looking to buy your items, but I think a huge part of it is what you're buying to resell. But you're going to find that there's going to be ups and downs, and that could be the thing that is the hardest for most to deal with, because many people don't put money away when things are good, and then when things aren't so good, then they're dealing with a shortfall, and it really gets rough. Now, here's a big con for working for yourself, and that is no benefits. I can tell you, when I worked for the railroad for, was it 26 years, we had such great health insurance, where Jenna, she worked there as well, and we kind of doubled up, which was kind of a cool thing, where we didn't even have a copay. She paid like $200 a month, and we could go to any doctor we wanted to. It was a PPO, not an HMO, and we really were spoiled during that time where we were employed for somebody else. And then fast forward to when we did not work for the railroad anymore. Well, we didn't have insurance for like the first 5 years. And we did the telehealth, which was cool. I mean, you're paying 35, 40 bucks per visit on average. I think we went through like Sesame Health. This is not an endorsement for them, but that's just to give you a heads up if you're looking for somewhere to maybe get an appointment or to be seen online. And that's something that I recommend doing. Of course, get your checkups and all that. But then we went to an insurance plan for 2025, and it's a lot different than when we were employed. I mean, we're paying $500 something a month, which may not be a lot. Maybe you're paying more or whatever, but the plan that we have just isn't great. It's hard to get a doctor, hard to get an appointment. It's an HMO, and we're really kind of comparing this to what we had, and it's really not all that great, to the point where it's may sound foolish, but I almost feel like I'd rather pocket or save the money I'm paying every month. Definitely benefits are a huge part of people working. And I know that people used to work, they didn't really need the money, but they needed the benefits for themselves and their family. And you just can't replicate that when you're working for yourself. Workload is often a problem. When you're first starting out, you don't have a way of delegating, unless you have like a significant other that works with you. It's just yourself. And you don't have somebody to say, okay, I don't like doing the listing. I don't like doing the shipping. I really don't like sourcing, or I'm not good at it, or I don't have time for it. You really are your own person. And of course, it starts with sourcing. You can't sell if you don't have anything to buy and sell. And of course, once you get that, you have to get it listed. And once you get it sold, then you have to get it shipped. And you are that person. You're wearing all the hats. And when you're working a 9 to 5, if you call off, there's someone usually there to cover you. When you call off on your own business, well, there's no one to wear any of those hats. And it becomes very, very difficult and stressful, especially when you're way behind. You might find yourself working 10 to 12-hour days or more, sometimes 14 to 16. And that can become a situation where it's just not healthy, and you become very frustrated with it, unless you really enjoy what you're doing. But still, you have a lot on your shoulders. And those 3 tasks that I mentioned are only the tip of the iceberg. You have customer service, you have to deal with eBay issues, chargebacks, problems with your listings. You have to test things, or make sure things or inspect things to make sure things are worth selling or in a good enough condition. So there's so many different hats that I think realistically most of these reselling businesses, really it would be ideal for you to have someone to take on some of these roles. But in many cases, you and I, we are it, and we're doing this all on our own. So those are the pros and cons for working for yourself. Now, there's some good things, there's some bad things. But what about working on a 9 to 5? Now, I've done, like I said, I worked most of my adult life in the railroad. When I was 19, I started off at the call center. And I really stayed the entire time at the call center, with the last like 11 years working in management, running 2 different departments during that time. You could see the trophies above, right where my finger is, these glass trophies that I've won on a national level, one for leadership and one for what we accomplished in the e-ticketing program. I have that experience, and I can tell you that working a 9 to 5 is a totally different animal than working for yourself. So the pros of working for a 9 to 5 for somebody else is the stability. You have provided you show up to work every day, you don't have to worry if this check is going to be a lot less than you're used to. You can plan things. You can plan what you're going to spend, because you're going to have this amount coming in. Again, provided you work your 40 hours or whatever it is. And it becomes easier to budget. It becomes easier to make sure your bills are paid. And if you want, you can actually plan a vacation and be able to put money aside and know exactly how much you're going to get. Now, another benefit or a pro is benefits. We talked about that. Benefits, where if you work full time, in most cases, you're going to have some type of a benefits package. And that could be your medical care, where you usually have a pretty decent package that in many cases your employer will help subsidize, and you're paying so much a month out of pocket plus co-pays or whatever. But usually it's at a savings as compared to what we would pay for if we're on our own. Also, 401ks, some companies do matching. You can really boost your net worth over time to where you can retire eventually if you have that built up. There's all kinds of things and benefits that you get. Like, for instance, the railroad, we got free travel. We could take the train wherever we want, plan your vacation, and it was pretty cool to have that benefit. Now, also another pro when you're working a 9 to 5 is you actually have a defined role. So you're working a certain department. You're not doing everything like you would be working for yourself. So you show up to work a certain task. Like I worked the customer support department, where the frontline agents on the phone got that difficult call or someone wanted to speak to a supervisor. That was sent over to my department, and that's where we specialized in. That's what we did. We didn't do anything else. We didn't drive the train. We didn't collect tickets. We just answered the difficult calls, and that was my defined role. And I think for some people, they kind of need that. The idea of multitasking for some, to do everything that's required with running your own business is not for everyone. So maybe you just need to have that set role where you know what you're doing every time you show up for work. Another pro for working a 9 to 5, you have a team there to help you. Usually, now unless you're a security guard guarding some place in the middle of the night, you're probably not going to have that. But usually, you're going to have at least one or more other employees that you can team with or work with or collaborate with, and it's going to allow you to really thrive. Some people need that type of environment to thrive, whereas doing it yourself, you just don't even know where to begin. And the last pro of working for a 9 to 5, that is less liability. So you don't have any risk. So you don't have the risks or taking on the risks of any kind of downturn. If something goes wrong with the company you're working for, you're still going to get paid. You showing up to work, in most cases, you're going to get paid. You work the time, you're going to get paid. And if that company struggles, well, that's going to maybe have an impact on their bottom line, but you're going to still get paid. Whereas you could show up to work every day working your own business, and if the sales don't come in and you're doing all the things, you may not be getting paid or paid that much. And the liability is certainly a lot less when you're working for someone else. Now that's the pros. Let's talk about the cons. The cons of working for someone else on a 9 to 5. So like I said before, you have limited flexibility. You got to ask people for time off. You can't just say, I want to take a vacation today and just do it. You have to call HR or follow the process for your company to take time off, or fill out this paperwork, or bid on this vacation block because everyone wants the same 4th of July holiday weekend off, or call off before an hour before your shift starts. Otherwise, we're gonna give you some kind of an occurrence or ding on your employment. So you certainly have very, very limited flexibility. And let's not even talk about shifts. Who's to say that you might want to work a premium like 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. shift, but you don't have the seniority. You might have to be stuck, like I was for many years, working the 6 p.m. To 2:30 a.m. shift and miss all that time that I could have spent with my kids. And one of the regrets that I do have as a 51-year-old man when my kids are out of the house is the time that I did not get to spend with my kids because of the limited flexibility that my shift or my job allowed me to have. And of course, a con of working 9 to 5 is if you have a $50,000 a year job, well, unless you get a lot of overtime offers, or you have unlimited overtime situations or something like that, you're pretty much knowing that you're going to make $50,000, and that's before taxes and your benefit package and your other things that are taken out of your check. And it's going to tie up your time. You're basically trading time for money, and you're limited as to what you're going to be able to make within that time. And many people, they make around $20, $25 an hour, your average entry-level job. I'm not talking about fast food. I'm just saying your basic entry-level job, which isn't bad, but that's what you're capped at. Whereas reselling, if you do it right, you can make upwards $30, $40, $50 an hour if you do it right. Of course, you're not going to get rich by reselling, but you can make a little bit more if you do it right. You can make a lot less too if you're doing it wrong, but you are capped with what you can make on a 9 to 5. Less autonomy is another con where you are not able to set whatever vision or goal that you want to set when you're working for somebody else. This is their sandbox. Sort of like a lot of us, we sell on eBay, but we are limited to what vision eBay wants to have for our listings. So now I'm not trying to say we're working a 9 to 5, but it certainly feels like that sometimes. But when you're working a 9 to 5 for somebody else, there's been many times where when I was working in the customer service department, our team was well versed on policies and things that, wow, it would be so great if we can do this. And the company decided to do the other thing or the opposite or totally ignore our advice. And it was sort of demotivating. It was a loss of motivation involved because we just felt like we had no voice, we had no control, and we just showed up to work and did what we were told to do, which is what most people do. And for some, it's you need that element of creativity or setting goals for yourself or being able to set a challenge for yourself that reselling gives you that isn't provided to you when you're working a 9 to 5. And you just have to realize you're just a number when you're working a 9 to 5, and you can be easily replaced by somebody else. How about the monotony? That's the next con of working for somebody. The monotony of showing up and doing the same thing over and over and over again, looking at the clock constantly through your shift, wondering, am I out of here yet? And playing little mind games with yourself to get yourself through your shift because the monotony of what you're doing is just too much. And with reselling, there's so much to do with reselling. You can say, for the first 2 or 3 hours, I'm going to list. And then maybe I'll get to shipping for a couple hours. And then maybe I'll run over to the thrift store or wherever I go and source and do a little sourcing. And maybe I'll come back to listing when I get back. It's not monotonous. You can break it up. Maybe you're working a lot during the day. Maybe you're going to just take the day off and work at night. You have the ability to make it less crazy for yourself or less boring for yourself by changing it up. Throw some music on. You can't do that in a 9 to 5 in most cases. Throw music on or blare music, while you're working because you have to be mindful of your coworkers. And the last thing that is a con for working for somebody else is really your job security isn't guaranteed. So if you're leaving reselling to go to a 9 to 5, you are pretty much going to be at the bottom of the barrel. A lot of these places have some type of seniority structure, and people that have been there and paid their dues, if there is a layoff, and we're not in the best economic situation right now in the world, if there is a layoff, then you are going to lose all your stability. You're going to have to return back to finding some way to make money, and you just don't have a whole lot of guarantees when you're starting off for somebody and working a 9 to 5. I mean, I was working for 26 years, thought I was going to be able to cruise to where I have at least 30 years, where at the age of 60 with the railroad, you can collect railroad retirement provided you have 30 years with the railroad. I was at 26 years, and they came to me and said, we're closing our office in the next 2 months, and you have to choose either a 6-month severance package where you don't make that 30 years, or you can go off to the East Coast where you know no one. Oh, by the way, you can't be in management anymore. Everyone that goes from here in management over there is got to take a pay cut and exercise their seniority. And that was if I could have made the move if I was still in management, but I didn't want to step down. And I thought, you know what, I was selling part-time. I might be able to make this work full-time. And I think I kind of lucked out. But even having 26 years and awards and all that stuff that I showed you wasn't enough to guarantee me anything. And after 26 years, surprisingly, I found myself in a different chapter in my life. And let me just say this, whether you're looking to leave your 9 to 5 or whether you're looking to quit reselling to go to a 9 to 5, this is going to be one of the most difficult decisions you're ever going to have to make. When you're at that decision, when it's time to make that decision, you are literally at a crossroads in your life. Do I go this way and stay at my 9 to 5? Do I go that way and stay as a reseller? And that is a tough question that each and every one of us have to answer. And I only implore you, do not make this decision in haste. Go through, if you want to rewind and go through this video again, go through each of the pros and cons that I've outlined and ask yourself that question. Consider, if you're at a 9-to-5, do any of the things that I mentioned, do they apply to you? Maybe there's other factors that apply to you. There's a few other things. Maybe a con of working for someone else is the people you're working for you just can't stand. I mean, that would have been number 6 if I would have had 6. That also affected me greatly, and it does have a negative implication on your health. So take the time, sit down for a half an hour to an hour, and just go over the pros and cons of the decision that you're going to be making. And that way, when you make the decision, you're taking a much more informed decision rather than one that is just a rash decision and not one that's well thought out. But figuring out what you are going to do as it pertains to your reselling business. Do I stay? Do I go? Well, that is another example of how flipping ain't easy. I want you guys to have an excellent rest of your day, and we will talk to you very soon.
Chargebacks, returns, and lowball offers too. Vero takedowns, they're a pain, what can we do? High selling fees, bad buys, and rude buyers galore. Flipping ain't easy, but we keep coming back for more. All resellers are gonna make mistakes. Learn from them, and you'll have what it takes. In the world of reselling, we're your guide. When flipping ain't easy, by your side. Sourcing great items is the key to success. Subscribe to the channel and stand above the rest. Focus on the thing that's within your control. Hang with flipping ain't easy. Let's roll. Catch the live streams on Mondays and Fridays. Join the Discord community for the parlays. Tune into the podcast Profit Playbooks. The name with Scott and Josh. Flipping's more than a game. Chargebacks, returns, and lowball offers too. Vero takedowns, they're a pain, what can we do? High selling fees, bad buys, and rude buyers galore. Flipping ain't easy, but we keep coming back for more. All resellers are gonna make mistakes. Learn from them, and you'll have what it takes. In the world of reselling, we're your guide. Flipping ain't easy, but by your side. Sourcing great items is the key to success. Subscribe to the channel and stand above the rest. Focus on the thing that's within your control. Hang with flipping ain't easy. Let's roll. Catch the live streams on Mondays and Fridays. Join the Discord community for the parlays. Tune into the podcast Profit Playbooks, the name. With Scott and Josh, flipping's more than a game. Catch the live streams on Mondays and Fridays. Join the Discord community for the parlays. Tune into the podcast Profit Playbooks, the name. With Scott and Josh, flipping's more than a game.